Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 25th January 2017. The first article is about navigating a Trumpian world. In this, we are going to discuss about what are the policy priorities of the President Trump and what are its implications to India, how the foundations of India-USA relationship is going to change during the Trumpian era. You all know that the President Obama and Prime Minister Modi has worked for strengthening the India-USA relationship. And it goes deep in from the Clinton's era, followed by Bush era and then Obama era in defense and nuclear sectors. And there is still an unfinished agenda, that is India's entry into NSG, where the US cooperation is very much expected. The USA's pivot to Asia, pioneered by the President Obama, is behind these strategic calculations. President Trump is talking about moving away from in all of these strategic calculations that will redefine power equations in Asia. And the second thing is, the President Trump is also talking about resetting relations with Russia and then redefining the relations with China and finally changing the existing global order to favor United States. The first thing is, the President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton also has tried to reset the buttons with Russia, but they did not move forward with assertive Russia. And the President Trump's call to the Taiwanese president did not go well with China. And already there are war clouds on South China Sea issue. Whenever an established power is getting threatened by rising power, there is a war happened in most of the circumstances. Is this going to lead to a war on South China Sea is a major issue. And the third is changing the global order. The existing global liberal order was pioneered by the United States of America in the last 5 decades. And Europe was a strategic partner in this. Now, NATO, which President Trump is talking about, or NATO, he wants to weaken the NATO, or he wants to bring in the expenditure of NATO distributed across the European and Gulf countries, may not go well with traditional partners of United States. And coming back to India-USA relations, the Cold War era, it has defined the logic of the relations, and after that, the development of a unipolar world and rising the expat community in the United States of America, and they're taking the political positions on both Democrats and Republican side. And finally, liberalization of economy. These can be stated as the 3 pillars of deepening of the relations. So, with American protectionism is rising, Indian services sector is going to take a hit with regard to the Trump's policies. And further to this, on Afghanistan, Russia and Iran are finding a new bonhomie with Taliban. It is not going to be in the interests of India. So in this context, we have to see that Trump's era is going to enter into an uncharted waters. How India has to redefine itself is a major challenge. And then the next is budgeting for the elections. The budget is a political tool. In this context, the present government is trying to move the budget to February 1st. So normally it is presented on the last day of the last week of February, but it is moving it on to the first day. There is a valid reason for this. When we have presented the budget in the traditional style, the actual implementation of the budget starts in the monsoon. So the effective expenditure happens in the last 2 quarters. The last quarter, you can see the March rush. So the quality of expenditure is decreasing and expenditure is not getting spread evenly across various quarters. So the early decision making related to the expenditure will increase the quality of expenditure if we are able to move the budget forward. So this year, elections have come up. In this context, the model code of conduct and the EC guidelines clearly states that the center cannot announce any of its achievement in these 5 states and also it shall not provide for any of the new programs for these 5 states specifically. So, if you see the argument of the simultaneous elections, the regular cycle of elections is disturbing the governance. So, this particular restrictions imposed by the election commission onto the budget making, which is the prerogative of the executive, clearly shows that the governance may get hampered due to the cycle of elections. Now, coming to the flirting with the chauvinism. Now, let's talk about the Jallikattu movement. It was more projected as a fight between the culture and the bioethics. But if you carefully observe, Tamil identity politics are also involved in this particular matter of Jallikattu. Simply to be stated the issue, the identity politics, when they are aligned to an historical and cultural event, then the situation may get worsened. So what I can state over here is, the chauvinism can get deepened when the people get polarized on the basis of socio-cultural factors. And the existing leadership crisis after the death of the Chief Minister Jayalalitha can be a proper ground for this chauvinism to take place. Bridging the Gulf. The Gulf Cooperation Council and UAE, these are going to shift the India's relations in the Gulf. Now, India's energy dependency, India's trading relationship is very strong with the Gulf. India has the highest expat community in the Gulf, which is the second largest source of the remittances to this. And added to that, India's second largest trading partner is the Gulf GCC. In this context, on this Republic Day, India has deviated from the norm and it has invited Crown Prince Al Nahyan to the Republic Day as the chief guest. And added to that, the sovereign wealth fund with the UAE is to the tune of $75 billion. And India needs these investments for its infrastructure. National Infrastructure Investment Fund is grossly underserved. So these funds can help for the building the infrastructure deficit in the country. So there is a strategic shift in India's engagement with the West Asia by moving itself close to the UAE. And second important factor is terrorism. India UAE are coming to sign a comprehensive pact on terrorism, and already UAE has declared to fight terrorism in all its forms. This can be specifically seen from the lens of the state-sponsored terrorism by Pakistan. So, the natural allies of the Pakistan, the Gulf countries, as they are moving close to India, this can be seen as a strategic advantage for the country. Now, coming to the news, the 69% of the political funds from unknown sources. Now, Association for Democratic Reforms, it has given a study. What it clearly states that more than 300% of unaccounted funds from the political parties have increased. Now, any contribution less than 20,000 rupees need not be shown from this, our source need not be declared by the political party. Greater 20,000 source has to be declared. And political parties do not attract the income tax. So in this context, the regional parties are much worse placed with regard to their finances, and the national parties are no way different. So bringing the political parties under Right to Information Act is the need of the hour, and every penny received by the political party shall be kept in public domain to bring in the accountability. And the next is the coming to tax guidelines. Normally, a company will conduct the operations on the soil of India, but it shows itself as functioning from distant soil. So, let's take tax havens such as Panama, Singapore. This is where the companies are registered, but they conduct major operations in India itself. So, that's why place of effective management is been defined in the tax guidelines. If effective management is in India and key decisions are made in India, that comes under the India's tax net. Now coming to UK government must get parliamentary nod for Brexit, that is the Supreme Court of UK talks about. Now, UK government wants to initiate the Brexit proceedings as per the Article 50 of Vienna Convention. So once it is initiated, it has to be finished within a time frame of 2 years. The UK High Court has stated that parliamentary approval is necessary as it is going to change many of the laws of the country. The Supreme Court of UK also has upheld the High Court's decision and stated that the UK Parliament approval is necessary to initiate the Brexit proceedings. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much and all the best.